Hi friends, just a quick trigger warning for this episode. We do discuss a character who ends up taking her own life. So if that is something that you shouldn't listen to, the discussion begins around 44:52. We start talking about our two peaks in the valley, and then it ends at 49:47. We don't mention it anytime after. You are in the clear after that to continue the episode as is. And with that said, enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Lit by Moonlight, where it's not a phase to become a spy in a world you don't belong in.
This week, we are talking about Holly Black's The Cruel Prince. In this book, mortal Jude Duarte is taken from her home at age 7, along with her twin sister Taryn and half-fairy older sister Vivi, after their parents are brutally murdered by Vivi's biological fairy father, Maddox. 10 years later, Jude is struggling to fit into the magical world of fairy and longs to be accepted by her peers. Jude desperately wants to be a knight with the king's court, but to do so, she must defy Prince Carden, who torments Jude and Taryn constantly and whom she loathes immensely. As Jude tries to make her place in the world of fairy, she quickly becomes involved in political intrigue, lies, and discovers she may have a taste for bloodshed. As tensions rise, Jude may need to make a terrible alliance and risk her life to save her family and the land of fairy.
Hi everyone, I'm Emberlyn, and I recently purchased my cat a small cowboy hat that I think he really likes.
And he looks good in it. And I'm Caitlin, and mentally I am Reese Darby wearing a bucket hat. Physically, I am Caitlin Morey in no bucket hat, and I'm really sad about it.
We need to get you a bucket hat.
I really want a bucket hat. I think it's a look. And yeah, I think we should bring back bucket hats. It's 2022.
It's time. I think bucket hats are actually back, just not back in our closets. Use yours and mine specifically, and we got to make that happen.
That's on us.
That's on us. All right. So, Caitlin,
yeah,
we're talking about The Cruel Prince today.
Oh, we sure are.
How did you first discover the series?
Well, if you're on TikTok at all, you're gonna see it, because that's where I first saw it. I didn't know anything about it other than all the book talk girlies were like cosplaying as these like characters and lip syncing to audio and music, and I was like, intriguing. And it literally would always pop up like anytime I was on like the book talk tag, and still didn't know anything about it because I was like, eventually I'll read it, so I'd scroll really fast. And I didn't know that like fairies were involved until I bought the book at Barnes & Noble, and the girl who was checking me out was like, ooh, you'll like this one, there's fairies in it. And I was like, oh, is that what it's about? Cool.
Yeah, I feel like this series is incredibly popular among the book talk girlies, which is how I also do it. I feel like there's a handful of books that you see in the typical book talk smorgasbord. Yes. And this one is typically one of the main ones that the girlies are talking about, so that's how it came onto my radar. I think we had that.
Did you know anything about it, or you just like were seeing it on TikTok?
No, I literally didn't know anything about it until I saw that first poem in the very beginning, which I'll talk more about later, about fairies, and I was like, fairies? Oh,
intriguing!
What a surprise! Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about fairies in this world. What did you think of the world building when you first started reading the book?
Yeah, I actually found it very interesting. I felt like there's something really aesthetically pleasing about the world that Holly Black takes us to. I really enjoyed the way that magic manifests. I think like the fairy fruit, for example, the charms, the glamours, all really piqued my interest. Explicitly the fact that the fruits, for example, are dangerous to mortals. So like imagine you're at the grocery store, you see a lovely enchanted fruit, you eat it, and you wake up 4 hours later naked in the Trader Joe's parking lot. That sounds like an exquisite time to me. That sounds like a Thursday, so I'm in, you know?
Okay, well, that did happen to me on Thursday, so I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Oh my God. I didn't see it on your Google Calendar. Was it like a kind of like a spur-of-the-moment thing?
It was a little traumatic, so that's why I didn't add it in there.
I'm sorry.
We'll unpack it off pod.
Off pod. So that was the big thing. And then I also felt like there were explicit places. The way that she described them was very interesting. Like Locke's home, the river, and then how Fairy is able to hide in plain sight from the mortal world. I thought that was really interesting, right in the hill. I think that the attention to surrealty and detail is really lovely. And I'm also just, all in all, very appreciative of books that make strange and unusual things matter of fact. So, for example, the way that Black talks about the water nixies when Jude's character and Taryn, they get pushed into the river. I love that because it was so matter of fact. The descriptives of the nixies were kind of vague, and I sometimes like that. That's something I actually really enjoyed about some of the original young adult fantasy novels, is the way that they made some of the strange things in the book matter of fact. In a way that it almost seems like the narrator has forgotten that you don't know what those things are because they're so normal to them. I think it really helps to paint the picture of the character who's telling the story. So I just really enjoyed that. It's very curiosity-provoking. Tell me a little bit about what you thought about the world building.
Well, immediately you open up the book and there's this really, and the best way I can describe it is just adorable map because I thought it was so cute. Like usually like if a fantasy book has a map, and mostly they all do, it all feels very almost authentic in a way where it's just like, this is a real map, and like it looks like something that like if we lived in that world, like this is how it would look, and it would have legit drawings. This one had like cute little doodles in it and little guys just doing their little business. I like the addition of just like the people on the map. There's like little deer, or there's like a little creature looking into the lake of masks, and like I think there's one like on a boat or something. And I was just like, they're just so cute, and they got like these little tiny faces, and I was like, this is fucking adorable. And then like also on the chapters there's like little doodles with like little bees and like flowers and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is really cute. So immediately I was like, I'm excited. And the thing that really got me in that map itself was the fact that there was something called the Lake of Masks, and I was like, ooh, that's cool, because on the map you see like this little guy looking into it, and there's like multiple faces in the reflection, and I was like, ooh, I'm excited to see what that is gonna be, because I was just thinking, imagine like looking into, and what it ends up being is, if you look into the Lake of Masks, you don't see your own reflection, you see someone who is either going to look into the water or someone in the past who already has looked. And I just think that's such a cool like detail, because I'm like, can you imagine like looking into like a reflective surface and not seeing yourself? Because that's terrifying. I just thought that was really cool. So I was really intrigued. I wasn't at all expecting the book to start in the mortal world, which I thought was really cool. And then because we were already there, I was like, oh, this is going to be like one of like those Chosen One series, and like this girl's going to be told like, oh, you need to come to this magical world and you can save it. But it wasn't that, which was kind of a cool like little not twist, but like I just wasn't expecting it to start like that with like this mysterious man, Maddox, who shows up to Jude's house and, you know, murders their parents, as you do, and takes them from the mortal world to the fairy world. So I was just like, shit, like this sucks. Like, what's gonna happen? As far as like fairy itself, I think it's interesting. I just feel like I'm a little bit of the opposite of you. I wanted to know more. And this could just be me, of how I was reading it, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but like all of these, like we get introduced to these characters, like this person has pointed ears, and this person has wings, and then this person's blue, and then this person has pink eyes, and I'm like, okay, what species are they? Like, are they all fairies, or are there like different types of people? Like, I want to know like that. And then like a lot of them all have powers. Like, it seemed a lot of it like, oh, they tell you what to do and you do it. Like, they have control over you, or like they glamour you, and I'm just like, so do they all do that, or is it only some? Like, I want to know the details. I need to know that. So I just felt like, and maybe it's just because we were seeing it through like a mortal's eyes, because it's told through Jude's perspective, but I just felt like I wanted more. I loved fairies when I was little, so I wanted to explore the world. I'm like, okay, but what are those guys? Like, what are they doing? And again, maybe there was just parts I wasn't paying attention, because literally as you were talking and you said that they hide in plain sight from the mortal world within the hill, I was like, oh, is that where they are? Like, that's on me. I didn't understand that when I was reading the book. So Yeah, maybe this is just a me problem, but I
No.
wish I wanted more from the world building because I wanted to understand the world more, but it just felt like it was just like a fun idea of a setting, and then the rest was just, I don't know. I wanted more.
No, yeah, I honestly think that the way you're feeling is very justified, and I hope that's something we talk more about later, is how it felt like there were pieces of this book in terms of world building and character development that could have been fleshed out a little more. So I think you're absolutely right. And you actually just mentioned something that reminded me a lot of Daisy Meadows. And I don't know if you recall this, but there were these rainbow magic fairy books from when we were kids. They're chapter books. And I remember that they had all these different fairies in different colors, and I remember explicitly having the Ruby the Red Fairy book, and reading it and loving it so much. So you just brought back my own love of fairies from when I was a kid, and I hope there are folks out there that remember those books because they were so cool. And I definitely think that maybe down the line we should definitely do like a review of kids chapter books and include those because they are awesome. But yeah, I think that you just made me remember that. And also why I would have probably been really excited about this book, because I think as a young adult, it's cool to revisit a fantasy topic that I feel like is usually typically reserved for like younger people.
Yeah.
Like fairies. So that's a really good point. With that in mind, Caitlin, was there a specific moment for you that hooked you in this book? I know you've talked about this a little bit already, but I'd love to hear your thoughts explicitly in great detail now.
Yeah, so it was the prologue, like when like they started off in the mortal world and Jude's and Terrence's like parents get killed, and Vivi's, of course. I wasn't expecting that to happen. I didn't know that we were going to start this book off with such horrible bloodshed and such like a traumatic like thing for the 7-year-olds. And I can't remember how old Vivi was, but she's like a little bit older, but still, you know, not young enough to truly cope with the death of your parents. So
No.
can you imagine like being a 7-year-old when this all happens to you? Like, I feel like any 7-year-old's dream could be being taken to like a fairyland where everything's all magic, and you think that would be so awesome. But like under the circumstances that Jude and Taryn and Vivi were taken into this world, their parents are murdered, and now they're being forced to go into this like foreign land, and it seems like it's horrible. And I was like, I couldn't wait to see how this traumatic thing that happened would have its effects on Jude. And like she doesn't seem to like trust people all that much when we do see her, because then it's like 10 years later when the book really starts. And so I was like really intrigued to see like, oh, how's her relationship with Maddox, who killed her parents? How is her twin sister coping with this? Are they like different in any way? Vivi's a little bit older, so she has her own feelings. So I was really interested how all of that was going to play out, specifically the tension between Maddox and Jude, because he did kill their parents. I feel like as the book went on, we didn't get a lot of that. I mean, there was tension between them, but like we were just constantly reminded that he killed her parents. But then sometimes he would do something and she's like, well, he killed my parents, but I guess he raised me though. So he's kind of being a good dad right now. And until like their fight at the end, not much really happens between them other than like her being like, yeah, I hate him most of the time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like maybe that's something that folks who've been raised by abusive parents can relate to, that complicated balance between, well, this person hurts me consistently, but also they love bomb me a lot, so I'm confused, you know?
No, that's fair.
I think so, but I also think you're absolutely right that we didn't see that a lot playing out in the way that I would have thought. I definitely keep reminding myself that maybe this is a young adult book where that nuance isn't needed, but at the same time I completely agree with you that I felt like maybe there was more space for us to hash that out, and I honestly wanted to see more of their dynamic. So I agree with you there. If anything, I feel like that was actually the part where I was hooked as well.
Okay.
Right in the very beginning, because we jump right in. I always love books, maybe because my attention span is very short, shorter than my thumb. When you jump right into the plot and it feels like things are taking off right away. That said, I do feel like I was surprised that we didn't really explore the death of Jude and Taryn and Vivi's parents more later on in the book. But I really appreciated that we just jumped right in. I remember I was listening to the audiobook in the bathtub. If you're listening to this podcast now, you'll learn about me that I spend about 24 hours a day. I'm going to say 24. I feel like that might be a low number.
It is, but sometimes it's good to give yourself boundaries, but it is 24 hours a day in the bathtub.
Yes.
Because if you're not physically in the bathtub, you are always mentally in the bathtub.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am going to get a sign that says that to put on my door. But that said, I was listening to the bathtub and I was hooked. I remember just sitting in the bathtub and being like, oh my God, our parents are dead. And, things kind of seemed like they were taking off from there. The other thing I really liked is the use of Robert Graves' poetry in the beginning. I thought that was also neat. I love when authors include media from other authors and poets, perhaps because they used their works as inspiration or to highlight the parallels between their work and the creator they admire, or just because they like the work and it makes me smile. That's something that I think if I were ever to write a book, or if we were to write a book together, Caitlin, would be cool to do, is maybe include a little nudge to maybe some media that we really enjoy in the beginning, if that creator let us do that. So that was a big thing for me.
I thought that was really cute. Like, I liked opening up and I was like, ooh, a poem. This is fun. I think that also like helped hook me as well. Like, even like before everything of all of the events in the prologue, it's like you get this poem and it's like it's already kind of giving you an idea of what you might expect in this book. I have a really quick question. So on the cover of the book, there is the crown, of course, and it's got like this like branch tree thing. There's also a beetle on the book, and maybe I missed it, but why the fuck is there a beetle on the book?
The fuck if I know. When I was reading our notes last night, I saw that you'd asked that question in our episode notes, and my immediate answer was because Jude wants to study Carden like a bug, because I know that's the way we talk about the men in our lives that pique our interest.
I want to study him like a bug.
Yeah, but actually I have no idea, and I've kind of been spiraling the past 24 hours trying to figure that out. Wilson the Tub, so. Yeah,
I was like staring at the book cover yesterday, and I was like, this is pretty, like, it's pretty. And then I'm looking at it, and I was like, what the fuck does that beetle do in there? Like, what? I don't remember anything about a beetle having any significance at all. And then I was like trying to remember like the code names of like the spies that she ends up working with, but they have nothing to do with bugs. And I don't know if that's just like, I don't think it's something that happens later in the books. I don't know because I haven't read them. But why would you put that there? And like, did we just both completely miss it? Why is there a bug on the book?
Yeah, I violently Googled last night, and I didn't find a lot of answers. One person, I think the best suggestion I saw was that there's some motifs where we describe some of the folks as a bug, like, for example, the roach. But that's not, like, roaches aren't green. And believe me, I live in
roaches aren't DC. Beetles. They're roaches.
I've seen roaches. They're not green. I wish they were green.
Yeah. That was just... I didn't know if you knew, because I sure fucking don't.
No, my brain is a grape.
All right, Emberlyn, I don't know if you know this, but a fun thing about our podcast is that on our Spotify, you'll be able to find a specially curated playlist for each book that we read. It's comprised of songs that we felt fit the book's vibe. If you aren't already listening to us on Spotify, you'll find the link to the playlist for The Cruel Prince in this episode's description. And now that being said, if you were able to play a song to hype yourself up for a heist to steal the crown, what would it be?
I think it would have to be Royals by Lorde.
That makes sense.
Because why the fuck not? You know,
it feels right.
I'm not going to sing it in my Lorde voice as much as I want to, but yeah, I think that's it for me. How about you?
Mine would be Homewrecker by Marina, because you're literally wrecking a family if you're taking their crown away from them. Like, the song kind of has nothing to do with any of that, but I'm just gonna pretend it is, and I love Marina, so.
No, I love it. I love it. I think Marina is a good fit for this book. Like, all of her albums could be applicable. I definitely think Jude listens to Marina on her free time.
100%. Mm-hmm. Specifically the song Lies by Marina.
Oh, get her.
Would you want to live in the mortal world or the fairy world?
I'm gonna say mortal world, since I am mortal. And I feel like maybe things wouldn't go super well for me in fairy. Citing my previous comments about ending up naked in the Trader Joe's parking lot. Sidebar question.
Yeah.
Caitlin.
Yeah.
So, as we know, when Jude eats the fairy fruit that our playground pulleys give her, she wilds out immediately. What do you think what do you think you'd end up doing if you were absolutely batshit on fairy fruit?
If I was batshit on fairy fruit?
Yeah.
I would probably strip down like Jude did, because usually, like, I hate wearing pants. Yeah. Already as it is. So I'd probably just like let loose and do that. And I would probably bop about town singing the J.G. Wentworth 877 Cash Now song. You know you know what I'm talking about?
I sure do.
Call J.G. Wentworth 877 Cash Now.
This is not an ad. This is not an ad.
It's not an ad. It's just stuck in my head for absolutely no reason. So I think if that happened to me right now, that's exactly what I would do. Or I would just like, I think what I would be doing is just like yelling and screaming all the things that do get stuck in my head, which are on a constant loop. So like currently it's the J.G. Wentworth commercial. It's the My Money Don't Jiggle Jiggle commercial. Or not commercial, song.
Yeah.
It is the TikTok sound saying not my circus, not my monkeys, not my circus, not my monkeys. Just on a loop. And I would voice that as loud for everyone to hear. So
I love that. I thought long and hard about this. I think I would rob an anthropology.
Oh, nice. Why?
Why not?
Why anthropology specifically?
I need new candles.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
I like it.
So with that in mind, I did want to ask you, mortal world or fairy? Coming back now to our original question.
I like the sidebar. Mortal world. Fairy seems awful. Like, you live forever, but for why? Like, it just seems like people are not having a time. Nothing about it seemed appealing to me at all. And it's like, the way I understood it is that people could control you at any given moment. And
it's a civil rights nightmare.
It is. I don't like it. I like being in control, and it just seems like you have to tread very lightly in this world.
Yeah. And
also just like living forever. Like, I love living, but like that just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem ideal to me.
It does not. It does not. I feel like it would get old after a while. You know.
Yeah. And you would get old after a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just catch me staying here in the mortal world. Thanks.
I prefer my short life. So tell me then, in your short mortal life, what character have you come to hate or dislike? What character would you enchant into embarrassing themselves with a fairy fruit?
Carden, because he's an asshole and he deserves it.
Yeah.
Like, I know that later on in the book, okay, listen, Carden, from the beginning of the book, he is two things. One, an asshole, and two, a dick.
Yeah.
And also sometimes Jude is like, he's pretty. And I'm like, girl, who cares? This is irrelevant. Because I have a list of all of the red flags this man has done.
Oh, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. Wow, that is a long list.
Just straight from the book. I don't even think this is all of them, but I have like tabs in my book that are all of the red flags. So just starting off with a bang, he punches a boy for no reason and rips one of his wings off. He kicks dirt onto Jude's food. He tells Jude that he could make her do something she didn't want to. Tells Jude, withdraw or wish you had when she wants to become a knight, you know, like her one thing that she wants. And he's like, bitch, don't do it because I don't want you to.
Ew.
He whispers foul things into her ear. He and his friends force Jude and Taryn into a river of monsters, which isn't really nice.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, the list goes on and on and on. And I'm just like, I don't like him. And it's fine.
No.
Like, it's good not to like every character.
Right.
But I don't like him. He's an asshole. And I know that later on, we are shown a scene where Jude is spying for Prince Dane. And we see Cardan is being treated really badly by his brother.
Right.
And I think he beats him, if I remember correctly.
He does, yes.
Which is not great. I don't wish that upon anybody. No. However, it's not an excuse to be an asshole to the people around you. Because I hate the mindset, well, everything's terrible for me, so therefore everything must be terrible for everyone else.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, like, you need to go to therapy and work on it, because it's just not an excuse for me. And being like, oh, well, he threatened my life, but he had a shitty childhood, so it's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not okay. He doesn't really show any growth in this book at all.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't, like, at any point, even towards the end, be like, yeah, all those things I did to you were bad. I should apologize. And he doesn't even acknowledge any of his actions. All we get is that, like, after like, literally all we get of this relationship is after Jude sees how he's treated by his brother, she just randomly starts thinking about him for no reason at all.
Oh my gosh,
like, she's just like, oh, Cardan wouldn't do this, or I wonder what, blah, blah, blah. Like, just,
yes.
Why? There was one note where I was just like, why are you thinking about him right now? This doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
And at one point, like, she's like, oh yeah, after he and his friends, like, forced my sister and I into a lake full of creatures, he did stay behind to make sure we got out okay. Like, bitch, he put you in there. Like, that's the bare minimum. Because at one point, towards the end, Cardan tells her, it's like, well, I never wanted you to die. And she's like, oh, you're right. Aw. It's like, no. Like, he didn't want you to die, but he still tortured you and your sister.
The bar
like,
is low. The bar
is
low.
So low. I don't like him, and and I'll say it, I don't like the relationship that I totally knew was going to happen from the beginning. I was like, Holly Black is going to make me want to ship these two, and I refuse to, because I don't like Cardan, and he's toxic. Do you have any thoughts on this?
So many. I couldn't agree more, and I just think that Cardan gives such exceptional incel energy that it's, like, upsetting. It's like... And you just made such a great point that I didn't even consider before about the fact that it seems like Jude doesn't seem to form any sympathetic connection to him until she sees that he's abused by his brother. It sucks that it's this black and white, but it almost seems as though she, in her brain, she uses the abuse that he receives at the hands of his brother as a way to justify his behavior completely, so that she can then see him later down the line as her love interest. And I don't think that's a good message to send to young girls reading this book.
No.
I think the bar is incredibly low in terms of, like, male anti-heroes who are later on love interests. And I think to that point also, like, this isn't a good utilization of enemies to lovers, in my opinion.
Thank you. I agree. Because I really do like enemies to lovers when it's done well. But when it's an enemies to lovers where, like, it's just so toxic to where you're like, why would you ever? And there's no growth shown. Like, from the beginning, Cardan torments Jude and tells her, like, you are nothing. I am better than you. You're never going to be this. Do this or else. Like, he's so, like, I have all the power and you're never going to have it, and I will continue to bully you and your sister and make your lives miserable. But there's never a moment where he's just like I said, he never realizes anything that he's done is wrong. it was only Jude being like, wow, I hate this guy. Oh, his brother's mean to him. I guess I'll kiss you now. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. And I guess you could argue the fact that, like, she was starting to become, like, almost, like, power hungry towards the end, which is, like, interesting for her character because, like, I like that I didn't always agree with Jude's actions because it's, like, usually you're rooting for your protagonist, but she wasn't very, like, reliable all the time, and she would kind of flip-flop. So I thought it was interesting for, like, her character to be like, oh, I want to fit in. To do that, I should become a knight so that I can prove that I do fit in this world.
I need power.
Yeah, I need power, and then it just kind of gets to her head. So I could see her doing that as, like, a power move for him because, like, that's kind of how she felt in that moment. But then she was just like, I kind of liked kissing him. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, he didn't do anything. Like, he didn't do anything for you. And just... I don't like this book.
Yeah, okay, no, speak it out. Like, shout it out. Because I couldn't agree with you more. Like, Carden is such a frustrating character. And I think this is an important moment for me to acknowledge for our listeners that I think that it's really important to acknowledge cycles of abuse in real life, right? Where you get abused and then you have a higher potential to become an abuser down the line. But the important thing is to break those cycles. And I don't think this is a book that does a good job of illustrating why that's important. Instead, it takes this character and it justifies their behavior, their cruelty, and then you don't see that character display any growth later on. And I just don't think I don't think that's a particularly meaningful message. I don't think that is it's harmful. It's harmful. I'll say that. So yikes.
My review of this book is yikes.
Yikes.
And here's the thing. I knew that this book was going to go. I knew that Jude and Carden were going to become, like, an enemies to lovers thing. I could just feel it, and just off of the things that I've seen on TikTok, I'm like, one of my notes was, this author is going to try and get me to ship Jude with Carden, and I absolutely refuse because he's the worst. Yes. And there's no growth. I love enemies to lovers, but I don't like it when there's no reason for them to be lovers if all they are enemies. Like, it doesn't. It's a toxic relationship, and I don't condone them in real life. And I really don't like them in books because I feel like for when I read it, it's like I'm not saying Holly Black was doing this, but, like, it's just, look, if this guy's bullying you, he actually likes you. And, like,
yeah.
And I hate that. And, like, no, if someone's bullying you, they're being a jerk. That's not them secretly, like, saying, actually, I really like you. That's why I punched you in the face. Like, no, that's just them not expressing their emotions in a healthy way. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, it really perpetuates that messaging. No, you're so right. You're so right.
It really does.
Amen, sister.
And that whole moment when Jude was like, why do you hate me so much? And Carden is basically like, because I'm jealous of you because of all of these reasons, and also because you're living rent-free in my mind. I'm like, how is that her problem? Like, get over it.
Incel behavior. Like, enough. Go to therapy.
Go to therapy. The Cruel Prince. Review of The Cruel Prince. Yikes. Go to therapy.
Yikes.
So what character would you enchant having all of that said into embarrassing themselves?
Girl, this is hard. Girl. I don't know, because after us discussing Carden in great detail, I feel like I have to add him to my list of people that are on my shit list.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, he totally sucks. But I also had to say Taryn. She fully betrayed her sister and never showed her an ounce of grace or acceptance throughout the course of the book. And it just made me so frustrated because Jude consistently takes pulls for Taryn in this book, and Taryn twists a knife in her side in response to each of those moments. And there were many times when I felt like Taryn was punishing Jude for refusing conformity. And I don't know if that was just because Taryn didn't have the ability to resist conformity herself and just be herself and be genuine and organic and, you know, speak her own truth as a mortal. and I'll talk more about this later, but I think Taryn was just too afraid to choose her sister over an opportunity to conform.
Yeah,
in fairy.
I get that. I feel like it's I feel like that was almost like it was a good way of showing like the different effects of being taken from when they were little. Where Jude is like, I hate this, but I'm like, I don't want to fit. Like, I'm trying to fit in, but also I keep being reminded that I'm mortal, and like, she doesn't put up with it, whereas Taryn's just like, no, just go along with it so we can have an easier time, blah blah blah, and that I can make my life here even though like we were taken, but like it's like Taryn made herself at peace, but Jude did not. But Taryn doesn't help Jude at all, and 100% agree with you.
And I feel like you just reminded me also that I think that Jude also strives for conformity as well, to be a knight, to have power, so that she can have some autonomy in fairy. I think that Taryn's path is definitely more passive, but what explicitly bothers me about their dynamic is what happens ultimately with Locke, where we find out that Taryn's love interest is the man, the fairy gent that Jude was seeing, and that's Locke. And that just, like, I kind of expected it the whole book, but even when it happened, it still pissed me off.
It was
like,
such a
dick move. I still had to put the book down for a couple hours. Yeah, like, it made me think of my own sister, and the fact that, like, not in the sense that I would, like, we'd ever steal each other's partners, but just in the sense that, I don't think I could ever hurt her like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can, you have your brother, Jason. Shout out, Jason.
Shout out to Jason.
Do you feel like you could ever hurt your basically your own blood like that?
No.
Somebody who you love and you've grown up with from being a baby?
Like, okay, so Taryn's whole thing was, do you know, okay, why was she not able to tell Jude who her lover was? Was it like a glamour thing?
It was like a fairy, it was like a fairy promise or something like that.
That's why I don't want to live in fairy, because like you have all these stupid things like, hey, I'm gonna tell you this, but you can't tell anybody, and it'll be like, oh, now I can't. It's just like, it's stupid. I hate it. Anyway, so Taryn had this whole thing where she had a love interest, but she wasn't able to tell Jude or anyone who it was until the coronation. And Taryn knows her love interest is Locke. And then she goes and she sees Jude with Locke having a grand old time with him and doesn't do anything. Like, I feel like there could have been some loophole where she doesn't tell Jude that, hey, Locke is the guy that I'm actually going to be with at the coronation.
Right.
She could have done something. She could have done something more instead of just watching, like, seeing it happen and being like, so what did you and Locke do? By the way.
Right.
You know? If that were my sibling and if I was in that situation, I would do better, I hope.
Yeah, do better. And I think it's clear that she's supposed to serve as a foil of Jude, Taryn is. But there are times when that doesn't work, because while Jude is portrayed as having this, like, lion heart, Taryn is meek to the point where it's unredeemable. Yeah. And it just upset me so much, because softness shouldn't have to equate to passivity or conformity. Yeah. And there were just so many times when I was so frustrated by her, and I just couldn't help but wish that we had more insight into why Taryn made the choices she made to betray Jude, or not stand up for her on so many occasions. Yeah,
I agree. So who, on the opposite of that, would be the character that you would give salt to fight the effects of fairy fruit?
I said Vivian, because she's just there. And, like, that said, I wanted more of Vivi, which is weird, because I really did appreciate the unique opportunity this story offered for somebody like Jude, who I would have figured would be more like a side character to be the main character in this book. Because I was really expecting Vivian to be the main character based on the way that the book started. But as much as I appreciated that, I actually did want to see more of Vivi and her girlfriend and their lives, and I wanted more of her character. And this is not a critique so much as it is like a wish and a manifestation that there's more of her in the next book.
Yeah, I hope so. If I read it.
And and also Oak.
Oh yeah,
because he's just a little baby boy. He's just a little baby fairy boy, doing his best. And I just think Oak's like such a cute name for a child. Like,
Yeah, that was
it definitely like it activates the granola mom in me. Like, though I don't like it in that context, I explicitly like it within the context of Oak being raised by his like fairy foster sister and her girlfriend.
Yeah.
I don't like it in like the granola mom, let your kid eat dirt. Like, don't put sunscreen on them. Context.
Is that what a granola mom is?
I feel like there's this, okay, sidebar, but there is this woman on TikTok that like lets her daughter or lets her baby eat like sticks and like rocks and stuff.
Oh.
And I am not condoning this at all. I am simply saying someone needs to call CPS. I'm also saying that she also seems like the type of person that would name her daughter Oak.
Yeah.
In fact, I think her daughter is named something like Oak or like Leaves or something. So just like
Come here,
quick
birch
sidebar
tree,
there.
time for dinner.
Yeah. It's literally birch or something. No, you're so right. Like, you're so close to what it actually is.
That's a choice.
Yeah, again, not condoning those actions, but saying that I feel like any like leafy tree names are just borderline granola mom. So watch out, girls. Let your kids eat normal food.
Says the girl named after fire.
Oh, shit. Me just not remembering my parents were granola parents. Oops. And look at me now.
Look at me now. Sorry, I had to point that out.
No, you're right. Wow. I just had like a... And they really were. They really were granola parents. Yeah, a lot of yoga. A lot of yoga in my house growing up. A lot of Greek yogurt. A lot of yoga. A lot
get that Chobani.
lot of plants. A lot of the Mary Jane. So, Caitlin, tell me about your favorite character.
Well, initially,
rather the character that you would give salt to fight the effects of fairy fruit.
Specifically, I did say Taryn because I really felt like, other than like being a dick to Jude, she really didn't do much. And then I also put like she did also have a relationship with Locke at the same time Jude was, so she is no longer going to be saved by the effects of fairy fruit. Sorry, Taryn, I've thought this over. But yeah, Vivi would be mine because she didn't want to be here. Like, she hates it here. And I love that she like just gives Maddox shit for everything, and he doesn't even do anything about it. He's just like, that's my daughter, she hates me.
That's her.
Anyway.
She hates me.
And I just think that's hilarious and iconic of her, and for her to be sneaking off into the mortal world with Heather all the time. Here's what I don't get, and I know there'd be repercussions for leaving, i.e. their mom sneaking off to the mortal world and raising them until Maddox found them again. But they have access to the mortal world, and they can go there. Vivi goes there often.
Yeah.
Why not just stay there? And like, I know at one point in the book they tried that when they were little, and like they didn't like it because like they were taking it from something comfortable into something uncomfortable again as little kids, and like I think the people that Vivi glamored, like they didn't know what was going on, so it's not like they were much help. But like, I feel like if you're growing up and be like, I just want to go back there, even if you don't fit in necessarily, I don't know. It was just me. I was just like, if you have access to the moral world and you don't want to be in fairy anymore, just go. Take the chances.
Right.
Like,
just do it.
Just do it. I feel like it'd be worth it because fairy sucks. So I don't understand why you would choose to be there. And like, I know that Vivi eventually wanted to just go to the mortal world for good. Right. But I was just like, why are you waiting?
Yeah, I'm glad that she's finally making those steps to get out. I wonder if for Taryn and Jude, it's just like that this is where they've grown up and they're so comfortable now with it, and maybe that they want to conform to this world more than they'd like to start this new life.
Yeah, and like I get that.
In a world they don't know anymore.
Yeah, and like Jude did say to Vivi, like, well, what would I do here? Like, I can't just get a job. I don't have any skills here. Like,
right.
I mean, it's fair to Vivi because she remembers the mortal world better than Jude or Taryn do. So, like, it makes sense for Vivi to go, but, like, again, what I don't get is
why she didn't do that already.
I know! And, like, I don't know. Again, I'll say it, fairy sucks. So.
Yeah. Not a place I would want to be. Yeah. Yeah.
Will not be going again.
Bark. So tell me then, Caitlin, now that we've talked a little bit about some of our favorite characters, some of our least favorite characters, and other aspects of this book, what are your 2 peaks and a valley for The Cruel Prince?
Well, peak 1 would be the whole scene where Jude is sneaking into, I think it's like where Prince Dane lives, or Balkan, or whoever. She's sneaking into that place, and they have a bunch of human servants who are glamored, where they don't know what's going on, but they're like doing everything like mechanically, and like doing other jobs. They have no awareness, but their bodies keep on moving. And Jude sees this girl who's there. Her name is Sophie, and she had seen her there before, and Jude was just like, I have to save her. Like, I have to get her out of here, because she could tell, like, she is, like, her body is worn out. She's not mentally there enough to understand it, but, like, soon she's going to die, and she wants to save her. And so Jude is able to get, like, this, like, the glamour or trance off of Sophie, and Sophie comes to, and she's so scared. Like, she has no idea where she is, and, like, she hints at, like, these horrible things that were happened to her, and she's like, this can't be real. Like, I can't live with the fact that this is real. And Jude is like, I'm gonna get you back to the mortal world, don't worry. And, like, it was just so interesting to me, like, the effects that had that on Sophie, because, like, she would almost rather just go back to not being aware, because of how scary it is that this magic is real, and how just, it's like literally a culture shock for her. And that was, it was the most interesting part of the book to me, because there's actual stakes there. And I wanted to see, I'm like, how is this going to turn out? How is she going to snake this whole ass servant out of this, like, heavily, like, not guarded, but, like, everyone knows all of their servants there. They're going to notice someone's missing. How is she going to do this? What are the repercussions of Sophie, like, now being aware? And Sophie ends up, unfortunately, taking her own life, because she just can't live with the fact that this place was real and that these horrible things had happened to her. So that, I felt like, was the most interesting part of the book to me. That's where I was really paying attention. I was like, ooh, what's going to happen? Because I felt like everything else in this book was pretty predictable to me. Like, I just saw it coming, where this was, like, the one part where I was like, oh, okay, what's going to happen? Yeah. What was your first peak?
I think that was my first peak.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I was sitting here struggling to think of maybe a handful of things that I really genuinely enjoyed about this book. And I mean this with all love. And I think that was really one of them. I agree with you. I think it was, like, probably the most unique and interesting thing in the entire book, when she tried to get this poor girl out. The writing there was maybe the strongest in the entire book, I felt. And I also felt like there was a plot there. Like, there were many points during this book where I felt like the plot was a little unbalanced, not in the sense that there were any loose ends, but just in the sense that there were times when things just felt, like, slightly off kilter. Kind of like, if all of these books were on the shelf, The Cruel Prince would just be slightly turned to the right or the left, a little tilted, and I'd have to go fix it on the shelf. But at that point in the book, I didn't feel that way. And I really appreciated that little that little piece where they were trying to get this girl out. And I was surprised by Sophie's reaction, because I think you would think that when you find out that this world exists, you would be amazed and excited and enchanted. And I think it was interesting to see Holly Black portray the dark side of that and the potential that being exposed to such magic can have to really overwhelm a person who's never experienced anything like that in their lives. I also think it was kind of interesting and near hilarious that this poor girl was at Burning Man when she got taken away to this world.
That was really funny.
Anything can happen to Burning Man, and if that is how I ended up in Fairy from Burning Man, I'd be like, what did I take at Burning Man? what synthetic drug has brought me here? So yeah, I was surprised by that. The scene where this poor girl takes her own life, I was very surprised by. And then I was surprised later on when Jude is walking through the crowd at the king's at the coronation, and she thinks she sees, or was it at the coronation, or was it later?
It was somewhere later, but she does see her.
in the crowd, she thinks, and I thought that was eerie, and I'd like to see the direction that takes. I'd like to see how we tie up that loose end down the line in later books.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me about your second peek.
First of all, I want to talk about the plot
Okay.
real quick, because like you reminded me, like when you were saying like this was like one of like really good writing, this part, and I completely agree with that. And I think I liked it so much because there was something happening there, whereas I
Yeah.
felt like most of the book, like you were saying with the plot, it was just like a little bit like off kilter.
Yeah.
I was just like, where are we going? Like there was
Yeah.
no like one thing other than like this coronation. And so when she became a spy, I was like, ooh, we're going somewhere. But then it was just like she was a spy and everything else was still happening. Like it didn't feel like there was any direction until people started getting killed at the coronation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to which in my notes I said, okay, red wedding. So there was just like, for me, when I was reading this book, the entire time I was like, okay, but where are we going from here? Where are we going? And it was definitely more character driven, which is fine, but when you don't really like the characters in the book, it's kind of hard to enjoy for me. And I think that's why that whole scene was so enjoyable for me.
That's a read.
Because it was really interesting.
No, that's a read. That's a read. So then I guess I'll pose that question then. What was the second peak for you in this book?
I don't have a second peak.
Oh.
Because I sat here and I was like, really like that part of the book. And then my second peak was when I finished the book, because then it was over. Which sounds, it's so mean. And like, it's nothing to do with the author. It just wasn't my cup of tea. It wasn't, I didn't enjoy myself reading this book. It was just more of me, like, every page turn, it was just like, oh, more bullshit. Like, I saw everything coming. I knew Carden and Jude were going to be a thing. I knew that there was something, I didn't know exactly what was going on. Like, I didn't see Taryn and Locke happening, but it was a guess. But I was like, this whole thing with Locke isn't going to work out, and it's like, this coronation is just going to go to shit. And, like, the closer, like, everything seems to really start happening towards the end. And then I'm looking at my book and I'm like, there's only, like, a few chapters left. None of this is going to get resolved. Yeah. And I was just, I don't have a second peek. So that's how much I enjoyed this book. How about you? Do you have a second peek?
So, in all transparency, we talked about this before. And I did say that I didn't, but then I thought a little more about it. And I did want to interject a second peek. So I did enjoy the world building and use of magic that I mentioned before in this book. That's my second peek. And I also just want to take this moment to acknowledge that while we do have some constructive criticism about this book, and we did just roast Carden on a skewer, essentially, I can tell that Holly Black really cares about the characters and the world she's built, and I'm excited to see how she grows as a writer throughout the next few books. So this wasn't my cup of tea. This wasn't your cup of tea. We can both acknowledge it. I don't think that'll stop me from wanting to read more of her works and see how she improves later on. This is something we discussed when we talked about Shadow and Bone as well. That initial book, we did feel like Lee's writing wasn't as strong, but that over time it did improve, and I'm hoping the same for Miss Holly Black. With that in mind, did you want to talk about your Valley?
Jude and Carden kissing. Jude and Carden kissing. Literally, I knew it was going to happen, and I hated every second of it. When I got to that part, I had full intentions of finishing the book that night because I had plenty of time and there wasn't much to go. But after I read that, I had to physically put the book down and go watch a silly show to get my mind off of it, because I was like, it was so gross. I literally went, yeah, and I closed it because for why are they kissing? And it was such a power move for Jude. But it still doesn't make sense to me. And especially, I can't remember if this happened after or before the kiss, but when Carden was just like, I hate you because I'm jealous of you. And she's like, ooh, so you really are always thinking about me. And I know you hate this. You hate me because you want me, and you don't like that you want me. I'm going to kiss you now. And
Yeah.
I was just like, why are we here? Just to suffer. Because I'm suffering and I hate this. And like then I think they kissed more after this. And I'm just like, why? Why are we doing this? And I hated it. And then it also prolonged me reading the book because I had to put it down. And I also hated that. So that is my valley. What is your valley?
I mean, before I tell you, I just want to say, reiterate your point, because the kiss is upsetting. And I hope that if you're a young person at home and you're listening to us bitch about Jude and Carden, then you'll understand that we are two 23 and 24-year-old white ladies that have been around the block with men in our lives. And we know bullshit when we see it.
Yep.
So this was exhausting for us. You know, I think I read this and I was like, oh, swipe left.
Yeah.
Or right.
I don't know.
What do you do on Tinder?
I'm not on dating apps. So
swipe the way that makes them go away. That's my motto. I will tell you my valley now. Okay, but I actually do have things to say about the portrayal of menstruation in this book.
Oh, yeah.
There's one line explicitly that I want to pop off about. But first I want to say, off the bat, it could be progressively better. While I don't think it's inherently harmful to acknowledge that periods suck, they can suck, I got really uncomfortable with the way that Jude characterized the distinction between fairies and mortals and how they have their periods. And I really almost wish that it hadn't been included. I don't see the necessity of it.
Yeah, when I read it, I was like, why is this necessary?
Yeah, like I didn't ask and I wasn't wondering.
And it wasn't because they were mentioning periods. It was because it added nothing to the story. Just, say what you're going to say. Cause,
I'm gonna read you the line. I know you're wondering. Side eye, I wasn't. No, they don't bleed once a month. Yes, they do bleed annually, sometimes less frequently than that. Yes, they have solutions, padding mostly, and yes, those solutions suck. Yes, everything about it is embarrassing. No. Immediately no.
No,
Immediately
it's not.
No. The moment I read that, I think a tampon shot out of my mouth. I was so angry. Because I don't think that under any circumstances we should be sending young readers who might be reading these books messages that periods are embarrassing, because it just perpetuates that.
Can you imagine reading this at 14 years old and you might are still new to having your period, and you read this and it's just like, everything about a period is embarrassing, and you're like, yeah, you're right. No, babe, it's gonna be okay. I get that. Go ahead. If you are someone who has periods, it is a normal part of your life, and it does suck sometimes, but every person who gets them goes through it, and you don't have to be embarrassed about it, and there are plenty of options to deal with it. This book I completely forgot about this part, and reading this quote makes me mad. like I know you were wondering. I wasn't. Thank you.
People who menstruate shouldn't have to be reminded that their bodies do things that society might characterize as embarrassing. That was right. And I get maybe the author's intention to want to relate to people reading this book. Yeah, it's embarrassing, I know, right? But it's not relatable. It just makes me sad.
I'm not embarrassed by my period. It's an annoyance. Yeah. But why do we have to call it embarrassing? Can you imagine, what if you weren't embarrassed about it? And then you're like, oh, should I be embarrassed about it? Because this thing that I have no control over happens to me monthly?
Yeah, it was a line that I felt would be very easy to internalize as a young person. So that was my valley.
And again, it wasn't necessary.
No, it didn't add anything. And again, it just made me sad. I think that I got so excited about... I get so excited about media for young people where we talk about periods in a way that's not only normalizes them, but doesn't make them a taboo. And when I see a book that does that, it makes me sad. It makes me want to wallow in the bathtub for an additional 24 hours. With that in mind, we'll lighten things up now. Do you have a favorite quote from this book?
I know you said you wanted to lighten things up, but I had to really think about this because I did not have a quote that stuck out to me at all, which is really saying something, because I feel like every time I read a book, there's always at least one thing that immediately I'm like, ooh, write that down. But reading this, I was just like, eh. So I did go through again and try and find one, and I did kind of like the quote is from page 216. Jude says, "Am I like this because of what Maddox did to my parents, or because he was my parent?" And I liked it because I feel like it was a really good look into Jude's like kind of like identity crisis that she starts to have towards the end, because for most of the book, she's been trying to find her place in this world for so long. She wanted to become a knight. And she's told, you're not a killer, you can't do this, you're just a mortal, you can't do that. And she starts to get, like we said, like power hungry. And I liked her asking herself, like, is this a result of what he did, or because I was raised by this guy who is also a killer? Right. So I thought that was interesting to her character. About as interesting as her character got for me.
That is valid.
Did you have a favorite quote?
Yeah. Coming back to my campaign against Taryn, mine was, I get why he chose her. I just wish she had chosen me. And this is a line that Jude says about Taryn after she's discovered that Taryn's love interest is Locke. And this just hurt me. I think this really hurt me on a personal note. Like, this struck a chord with me. Because I just can't imagine the hurt and the betrayal and the audacity of Taryn to do that. It bothers me so much, as I said before, that Jude consistently sacrifices for Taryn, and Taryn consistently proves to be the worst twin. I also think that it's kind of a beautiful quote, because it's something that maybe a lot of us can relate to in scenarios where we felt like we weren't chosen in an opportunity, in a moment where we felt like we should have been. And I think this book got me thinking a lot about my sister and how much I love her and how I would always choose her, and how I just couldn't imagine. I literally have a picture of her right here on my thing, and I'm just like looking at it right now fondly. She's so cute. And how I couldn't imagine not choosing her. Obviously, there are many times in life when we have to choose ourselves, of course. But for Taryn, this was not one of them. And I think that Taryn should have a discussion with me and my sister to see what goated sisters treat each other like.
Yes.
So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Taryn just, she made a lot of choices.
Choices were made.
So, given everything that we have said about this book, on a scale of 1 to 5 blusher mushrooms, what do you rate it?
So I gave it 2 blusher mushrooms out of 5. And I say this with no ill will toward Holly Black. It's just not my cup of tea. It won't keep me from reading her books down the line, because I have faith that she will improve as an author. But in between Jude's love interest, Carden, and the dialogue about periods and some of the placement and rhythm of the plot, it just really wasn't for me. But how about you?
I know in our notes I say 3 blusher mushrooms, but that was really just me being nice. It really is a 2. It's a 2.5 blusher mushrooms for me.
2.5.
1, because it was a really quick read and it was really fast paced and I got through it pretty quickly. So if you want a quick read and you want to see what this is all about, then definitely read it. It's super easy.
Yeah.
I gave it another star because I don't hate this book. Again, like you, it wasn't my cup of tea, and it was just super predictable for me. And I think a lot of the reviews beforehand were like, "Oh, twist you don't see coming," and I was like reading it, and I was like, Where? Because I saw this coming before I started the book. Like,
Yeah.
And then the half because I will read the other 2 books that come out of the series because I am interested to see where this goes. And who knows, like maybe I'll like the other ones more. I can't say I hate it and then not read the rest of it. So 2.5 out of 5 blusher mushrooms for Holly Black's The Cruel Prince.
Yeah, I think that's realistic. I hope that we didn't leave a bad taste in your mouth about this book. I hope that if you're interested in fairies and if you're looking for a quick read, that you do pick up this book and consider it. And maybe you'll see it in a different light than we did.
Yeah, just because we didn't like it doesn't mean other people won't. Like, everyone's entitled to their opinions. It wasn't for us.
Thanks for tuning into our discussion of The Cruel Prince. Tune in next week when we learn a dark secret that threatens an entire continent in Mary E. Pearson's Dance of Thieves.